Well, hi there, everybody. It's time for a Gary Neville podcast. We've got a lot to talk about, and we start here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It hasn't gone the way of Tottenham Hotspur and the league leaders. That a statement today?
Yes, a statement, but a long way to go. I think that first half was really good. We know Spurs have struggled in the first half, and Arsenal exploited that. I think that it wouldn't have been easy for them, though. We were here at the end of last season when I think there's still a few of those players on that pitch will have needed to go out into that warm-up today thinking we've got to rid ourselves of a really bad memory. And I've been there, you've seen it yourself, Martin, in football, where sometimes things can hang over from a previous season. I know we all say it's another game, it's another season, but you walk out, you think, oh, I'm here again. I remember used to think that sometimes at Stamford Bridge, where we had a poor record, sometimes the Dell. You go to the Dell and you think, oh, it's sunny again. But, I thought Arsenal did really well in that first half. The first goal's a big moment. I thought the game was quite equal up until that point. And Hugo Lloris had a really poor start to the match. There was a kick that he sort of deliberated on, and then there was I don't know what you'd call it really. It was a mess and a
No, you had
fumble.
to call it an own goal in the end. Yeah,
it was a fumble, and from that point on, Spurs never recovered mentally in that first half. Even Antonio Conte on the sideline looked very flat.
Do you think, we talk about the contrast, and you gave Aaron Ramsdale the man of the match because of the second half when Spurs did stir themselves a little bit. Is it really as simple as saying, well, the difference between the two goalkeepers decided the match?
Moments, yes, but I think Arsenal were far better in terms of their performance in the first half. But Tottenham had, 4 or 5, I think, really good chances in that game. The reason I gave it to Ramsdale was because I think that the big moments in the match where he did make those saves would have made it a very uncomfortable finish or a very uncomfortable match for his team. And I'll be really honest with you and open. When I looked at Ramsdale, the price tag, getting rid of Martinez, I wasn't sure. He's not my style of goalkeeper, I'll be really honest with you. He wants to get too involved. I like a big goalkeeper, 6'3", 6'4", really dominant, sort of scares opposition forwards. But he is more of a modern goalkeeper, a goalkeeper that's coming more, is in fashion, not more into fashion. And I have to say today, that's the most composed I've seen him in a game that I think you said before. He's lost here, is it 3 times?
3 times before with 3 different clubs. Arsenal was the third of those 3, yeah.
Yeah, so he's lost here 3 times before. This was a big game today for Arsenal. And look, there's more big games to come. But I just thought today, his positions in terms of sweeping up behind his back line, I thought his positions on his saves in terms of making sure that he made the big saves in the game, coming out and dominating his box and punching or catching when needed and when it was possible. I don't think he put a foot wrong in that game today, and he brought real authority to his team. Now, sometimes when a team win 2-0, you think, well, it's got to be a forward, it's got to be a midfield player. There were many good performers for Arsenal today. I thought it was a really good performance for them. I thought Mikel Arteta, at the end of that game, will be as proud of the second half as he was the first. You mentioned that 2-0. If Tottenham do score, that's a really awkward second half for obviously for Arsenal, and this crowd would have been really up. And I thought Ramsdale was really critical to that, and the resilience, the management of the game in the second half was a good sign. I still think there's a long, long way to go. And we talk about title race, and I was thinking before the game, travelling here today, because of what Liverpool and City have done over this last 5 years in setting the bar so high, where one mistake's almost looked fatal in terms of you winning the league, this season reminds me of a Premier League title race from seasons gone by, 10, 15 years ago, where teams would lose a couple of games. You would get a team that ran away with it and set the sort of pace like Arsenal are doing. Maybe the favourites start a little slowly and maybe aren't up to speed yet. We quite often would be sort of jostling for positions around sort of, if you like, December, January, February. It might not kick on till March, April, May. This shouldn't be a season that's judged like the last 4 or 5 seasons where there's been 2 teams going hell for leather at one another and there's been 90-odd points, late 80s. I think this is slightly different this season. It feels to me like a sort of throwback of a Premier League season where awkward, odd things could happen, strange things could happen. Arsenal have got, at this moment in time, a very strong position, but they've got 20 matches left. They've still got to play Manchester City twice. I think it's such a long way to go. And this idea that we're talking about the title already is just because of what's happened in the last few seasons, where we've seen it sort of, if you like, that that ability not to make mistakes. Whereas in the past, when we won titles, we were quite often winning them with late 70s, early 80s, and losing games along the way and dropping points. I think this season will be like those previous seasons, beyond the last 5.
And the other thing is we're used to being mid-January with 23 games played or something like that, and we're in danger of misjudging it simply because we've got our calendar out of kilter. There is a long way to go, isn't there?
Such a long way to go, Martin. We could have been in a position today if Tottenham had have beaten Arsenal and Manchester United win against Crystal Palace on Wednesday and beat Arsenal next week. Manchester United could have been level with Arsenal. I mean, it's ridiculous that. Can't believe that could have happened. Arsenal have won here today and won really well. But that just tells you what's going to happen in this next month or so. I mean, your calendar will look like mine. There's so many matches that have been put in over this next 4 or 5 weeks. I've never known a January and a February so packed with fixtures, which is great, and we know why, because the World Cup, obviously the passing of the Queen, has meant that there's been this sort of, if you like, backlog of fixtures, but it means that there's going to be weeks whereby a team could draw 2 games and lose 1, and all of a sudden they're out of the title race, or it could be that 8 points is gone, or it could be that City are 16 points behind and Arsenal have gone away and run away with it. You know, we're in that type of sort of situation at the moment. I still feel City will come through. I still feel at this moment in time that they're obviously not at the best. But well done to Arsenal. I had them down at the start of the season as it being very difficult for them, and they're doing well so far, really, really well.
Let's get on to the derby from Manchester and City's defeat, but the game hinged on a decision that everybody's had a say-so about, the Bruno Fernandes goal. What was your take on that?
As a fan? Or as a pundit?
Well, both.
As a fan, Martin, I came down to London after the game on Friday night at Villa because I just thought, well, you know, getting down early this morning for this big match, I'll come down. So I watched it in my hotel room, and I just thought, you know, I think at that point where that first goal went in, I think I'd wandered towards the coffee machine to make a coffee, thinking this is just, you know, a normal Manchester City 1-0, keep the ball. They might get a second, they might not, but they'll see it out. All of a sudden, it happens. And my initial reaction, Martin, was, honestly, and I think many people's would be the same, was Rashford didn't touch it and that Bruno was onside. I think we all saw that and thought, he's not interfered, he's not scored, you know, it's a goal. And that's what the officials come to the conclusion.
And that's what the law states.
As a fan, I was absolutely delighted, obviously. And it was a memorable 15 minutes, one that, to be fair, I wish I'd been in Old Trafford because there'd been a special atmosphere, I'm sure. And it was, I know, because there were people there that I know that were there. But if I was a defender for Manchester City, if I was a coach for Manchester City, if I was a fan of Manchester City, I'd be absolutely devastated at that goal being in. I know the offside rule has been adapted. When I first started playing, any player that was the other side of the last defender was offside. Any player, didn't matter where you were on the pitch. And I think rightly, it was brought in that if you were on the far side of the pitch or you weren't interfering with play, that play could go on. But that made it already more difficult for defenders. I think if we're now saying that those yesterday are sort of, if you like, onside, we're making it, I think, probably the balance has probably gone too far. That is, for me, an offside goal. I listened to Peter Walton on the television say that it was a goal because he wasn't interfering with play. I doubt that. I think he has interfered with Manchester City's defenders. And if I look at it in a way which, to be fair, as a fan, I'm absolutely over the moon. If I look at it as a player, an ex-player, and I always think, would I like that one against me? I'd have hated that goal against me. So I have to say that. And
Eric Ten Hag said exactly the same afterwards, didn't he?
Well, Eric Ten Hag,
honest about it.
Eric Ten Hag gives very honest interviews, and he said the same. That if that had been against Manchester United, they'd have been absolutely fuming. You know, he'd been jumping up left, right, and centre, and I'm not surprised Manchester City are, because they can feel hard done to by that. You know, VAR haven't even sort of, if you like, maintained the on-field decision. Oh, well, it was given by the assistant referee, then overruled by the referee, and then you think, well, the actual VAR have got to overrule the referee again. And the right process hasn't happened. I don't go along with this idea of, you know, I don't think there's any maliciousness in it. I can see why it happened, because at the time I was of the opinion Rashford's not touched it. Bruno scored, he's on. But the fact of the matter is, it was a big moment in a big game. You know, people obviously getting very carried away with it today, and rightly so. I mean, it's a big game. It's a Manchester derby. 8 points behind now, obviously Arsenal. Maybe I'm less annoyed by it, by the fact that it's obviously Manchester United that have won. But I get it from a point of view of Pep Guardiola and the City players. I'd be absolutely furious if I was them.
Rashford at the centre of it by not touching the ball. Then he did touch the ball, and what is he doing? I mean, he's just reborn, isn't he? It's wonderful from the England point of view to see somebody who was fading away. You talked about him leaving Manchester United for his greater good, and now they can't manage without him.
That was Carragher. Yeah, that was Carragher who said he should leave. No, I never. There was talk of it. You're right. I think at one point I did say that I thought it would be a failure of Manchester United if he was allowed to leave, and if he was allowed not to.
It looked as though that might happen. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. His people, his team at the time, which he looks like he's stripped back a little bit now. It felt like they were sort of briefing that he may have to go and look at other options. That he's wanted in Paris, he's wanted here. He's at the right club, Marcus Rashford. Let's be clear. He needs to stay there. And thankfully he's come back into form and he's demonstrating what he can be. I mean, Manchester United yesterday, if you just said to me that they would have a back four of Wan-Bissaka, Luke Shaw at centre-back, with Melissa at left-back, and that you'd have Bruno, Martial and Rashford up front, if you said that to me 7 or 8 months ago, I said Manchester United would be in big trouble. Eric Ten Hag is doing an unbelievable job there because he's still got a team that looks on paper well below what it needs to be, but he's extracting everything from them. Casemiro in the midfield of Eriksen.
He's been a big signing, hasn't he?
Big signing. Yeah. And I thought it was a really good decision yesterday from Eric Ten Hag to put Fred in. That was the one thing yesterday morning when I woke up. Obviously, we were at the Etihad earlier on in the season, and that midfield of, I think, was it McTominay at the time with Fred and with Eriksen and Fernandes? Putting another, if you like, solid blocking player in with Fred was a masterstroke. It meant that the game was more difficult for City, and Casemiro has been absolutely outstanding. Just authority, composure. Manchester United's midfield was the problem, actually, for many, many, many years. Actually, at the moment, that looks like it's the strongest part of the team, and it looks like they need additions at the back and obviously maybe up front. Obviously, Weghorst has come in. So, look,
there's a structure, isn't there, now, which we felt Ranić would bring in but didn't. And now Eric Ten Hag has also instilled discipline. And I love the story about after they lost at Brentford because they didn't run far enough. He made the players run the extra distance at training the following week, and he ran as well. And the players really respected that.
They did, and I thought it was a risk at the time when I heard that story. I thought that could go either way. You know what players are like and how the spirit at the club at that time. Look, I'll be really honest with you, Martin. I'm mesmerised by the job that Eric Ten Hag has done. If you just said to me 4 months ago, 3-4 months ago, this is where Manchester United, I said absolutely no chance. I said they'd be finished halfway down the table the way in which they were. Coming off the back of last season, the start of the season, I thought they were absolutely nowhere near. Thought they overpaid for Anthony, thought they overpaid for Casemiro, thought it looked like the usual Manchester United panic. So it's worth noting in moments like this that we shouldn't go too far, but I think the job that the manager has done, not just on the pitch with the players and how he's actually brought them together in that spirit, but the way he's dealt with big situations. Harry Maguire had a big cloud over him for many, many months and maybe a year at Manchester United. Should he play? Should he not play? Cristiano Ronaldo situation, don't want to mention it, but it's been dealt with absolutely perfectly by the manager. Those that doubted the manager dealing with it properly, I think, probably looking now and thinking, actually, I think he's got that one right. And then in terms of how he's just, again, extracted the best out of the situation, the way in which he's dealt with the Jadon Sancho situation and with empathy, and obviously he's not been rushed back in. Anthony, £90-odd million, leaves him on the bench yesterday. No problem, he's with leaving a £90 million player on the bench. So all these things, playing Luke Shaw at centre-back in front of Lisandro Martinez yesterday in the derby. I mean, again, they're brave decisions. They're not just decisions that you think, before the game, I thought that Lisandro Martinez would play. I thought Luke Shaw would be left back. But no, I think that he knows what he wants to do. He's willing to take risks. He's his own man. He's done a very, very, very good job in the first 5 months. It's an outstanding job. Now, obviously, there's many, many months. There's another year and a half to go. But City getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup, I know they've got difficult games against Notts Forest, and they'll have a final against one of the two teams that are left. But they've got a big chance here, Manchester United, to win a trophy this season in the Carabao Cup. They've got a big opportunity to get close to these two teams at the top. They have. I'm not saying that I don't think they can win the title. It'd be unbelievable, unthinkable. But the fact that we're even thinking and talking around the fact that they could be level with Arsenal in a couple of weeks' time or whatever it may be is unheard of. And I have to say, the club still needs new owners. It still needs to sell. The Glazers need to sell quickly in the next month or two. That would, I think, I think, give even more confidence to the club that they've got the right manager and they've hopefully got better owners who have got, to be fair, the money that the club need. Rather than extracting from the club, they can put money into the club.
I have to just pick you up, and you have to say it into the microphone. Nottingham Forest.
Nottingham. Have I said Notts Forest? Did I say Notts
did.
Forest again? I've said Notts Forest now about the last 3 times. I'm not sure I'm going to get out of Nottingham when I go there for the Carabao Cup in a couple of weeks. I apologise to you Nottingham Forest fans. I know it's an insult to you, and I feel the same way when teams say Man U and stuff like that. And
I know you do. That's why I know you would take the little poke at you.
It's just growing up. It's what I used to call them. But the reality of it is, I am apologise. I understand those things are important to fans.
Let's just talk about the other United involved. Newcastle, who worked hard. Teams find a way to win when they're doing well, and Newcastle had to wait very late, but got the result. They got lucky with Mitrovic's double-footed penalty as well.
The groundsman from Newcastle's just got a little monitor underneath and just put a little bit of water into the penalty spot as he was running up, I think. No, I mean, we were watching it, weren't we, here, and saw him slip. Well, we saw the goal go in. And then we thought, it's been disallowed. We thought, has he kicked it onto him? And then we wondered whether there was a rule change. They changed the rules that much. We wondered whether it might be taken again. But yeah, Newcastle have done fantastically well. The last game I watched against Arsenal, and they weren't brilliant in that game from a football perspective, but what they showed was a spirit and a compactness in defence, and they were tough to beat.
Another clean sheet.
A clean sheet. Another clean sheet today, obviously, beat the penalties, albeit the penalties obviously been... they'll count their lucky stars for that, but they're a tough team to beat. They'll want a little bit more in attack, but where they're at this moment in time, I think that Arsenal are the story because of the fact they're 8 points clear from where they were at the end of last season, but there's no doubt Newcastle are right behind it, and then Brentford and what they're doing is absolutely brilliant. So in terms of punching above their weight, those 3 teams, and I'd probably put a mention in there as well for Erik ten Hag from the start that he had, although you'd expect Manchester United to be in the top 4. I wouldn't say they shouldn't be at the start of the season, but those 3 teams, Brentford, Newcastle and Arsenal, have been outstanding in this first half of the season.
And
Brighton as well, so I should mention Brighton, outstanding. What a win.
That takes us on to Liverpool. I think Chelsea have won today, so maybe we'll leave that for another day.
Yeah.
But Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp virtually said that was the poorest performance under his management.
Yeah, it's really odd and strange because we couldn't speak any more highly about Jurgen Klopp and what he's done at Liverpool, the effort that he's extracted from his team.
Is that the problem? So much effort from players who are still putting the shirt on every Saturday?
I don't know about that, Martin. I mean, Manchester United, I was there for 20 years under a manager who demanded that effort every day, and there were players who were there, a group of players who were there for 10, 15 years. And yeah, there was the odd season of a dip, and that could be this. But it's stark sometimes to see it because you watch them and they're a mess at the back. They're all over the place. You can create a chance against them, score a goal against them every single attack. They're going to have to regroup. I think Jurgen Klopp will regroup. I don't think he's not the type to shirk it at all. Jurgen Klopp, he's a massive character. I think he's put in an unbelievable managerial performance, equal or better than Pep Guardiola in this last 5, 6, 7 years. I really do, what he's done at Liverpool. And they've got new owners coming in. They have spent money. But the new owners that are coming in, you would imagine, if Jurgen Klopp's given the money that Chelsea have given their manager and their football department in this next 6 months, which is you expect the reason why FSG have sold.
It's a departure for Chelsea, isn't it? They normally get rid of the manager and the club owners bring the players in. Now Graham Potter's going to have a difficult changing room maybe to deal with because 5 or 6 have been told you're not going to be involved.
Yeah, look, they've got a lot of players, particularly in forward areas, Chelsea. Yeah. But just going back to it, if Chelsea, how much is it they've spent now? Is it 300 and odd million?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, if Jurgen Klopp...
They've outbid Arsenal for Mudryk anyway, haven't they? Yeah.
I mean, if Jurgen Klopp can get that level of money, that 200 to 250 million from new owners, who will probably have to promise that to come in anyway to buy... Obviously, it's going to cost billions, and FSG obviously going to leave, and they haven't got. I don't think they can keep putting in that 150, 200 million every year. But if Jurgen Klopp's armed with money, and he spends it as wisely as he has done for the last 8 to 10 years, or 6, 7 years, then to be fair, he's going to be empowered next season to go and obviously transition and transform that team. That obviously, in that club, I don't see him sort of, if you like, thinking of this as being the end. I think of it seen it as a new beginning, really. So I think that in that way, because of the credit that he's built up, you're not going to stick the boot into Jurgen Klopp and the Liverpool players. Yeah, you're going to be critical of them. They're defending really poorly. They're too easy to play against. They're poor in midfield.
Minus Van Dijk again, as they were for a long period and suffered a lot.
But they've got centre-backs. You look at Manchester United without the centre-backs. Manchester City have played yesterday without Laporte, and I know Laporte's on the bench, but Diaz wasn't playing. I think that, for me, you're going to have to cope with that, and they've got enough players in the squad to be able to cope with it defensively, and they're not coping with it. They should be a lot better. They've got a lot of experience. The forwards, Salah's not what he was in previous seasons at this moment.
Mane's gone.
Mane's gone, and the others are a little rugged and raw around the edges, and obviously there's some injuries as well. Jota,
Firmino and Jota, yeah.
Jota and Diaz is injured as well.
Diaz,
So they've got 3 players out. So there are things that you could argue are going against Jurgen Klopp as well, there's no doubt.
As Chelsea would in their situation as well.
Well, yeah, they would.
While we're on Merseyside, just to finish, we could talk a lot about the relegation issues, but it's still very early. But Everton are lurching from one bad result to the next one, and it's not looking very, very comfortable at all, is it?
No, and you think back to the end of last season when you saw that spirit building outside the ground on the way when the coach was on its way to the ground. You thought that would be a catalyst for.
The same thing happened before the Southampton game. They got good support going in, but it didn't lead to the result. And of course, the issue with the directors. That's scandalous, really.
That's not right. No, that's not right. I think I say that at Manchester United. It's happened a couple of times. There is a line, obviously. We've seen actually here today at at Tottenham, haven't we?
Right at the end.
A Tottenham fan jump on and kick Ramsdale. Now, there'll be repercussions of that. And I called him an idiot. You cannot do that. That is well out of order. You cannot come on and kick players. You cannot.
But I'm not defending the supporter at all, but Richarlison made an issue out of the final whistle.
He did.
But that was the flashpoint, and others, it inflames others as well, which is why players have a responsibility.
He did, but the player, there's a fan I think jumped over the advertising order, jumped on it and kicked out.
Yeah.
But look, at the end of the day, we can't accept that, and obviously at Everton, you can't get to a point whereby people feel threatened and there is significant, threat of harm against senior figures at the club, anybody at the club, anybody in the crowd. You just cannot accept that. That is the line. We cannot have that whereby people can't come to watch a football match. We all know how passionate Everton football fans are. We know that. We know they're desperate. We know that for years and years and years, they feel as though they've been hard done to, that they have been given they have been dealt with poorly, by successive owners, and they've not had the investment. You look at
the investment's been poor, hasn't it? In the direction of the investment.
Martin, look at this ground here. Mm-hmm. Look at Manchester City. Look at Chelsea. Everton are the equal of these clubs. There is no doubt Everton are the equal of these clubs. I would say probably they're not at the level of Manchester United, of Arsenal and Liverpool when you think about it. I think those clubs have always been sort of, if you like, a level above. But they are the equal of Tottenham.
And they will have a ground.
They will, but they need it. They need it now. They're behind. They're so far behind. Look, there has been money thrown at it, but they're all over the place in the boardroom there. It's a mess. They're so passionate. Every time we go there, every season I say the ones to watch are Everton. They always laugh about it on Monday Night Football, Dave Jones and Carragher, because I almost want them to have that season where they jump up and surprise me, because you just know when you go there, if you get a bouncing Goodison Park, it's special. And it was depressing to go to St James's Park for many years, knowing what St James's Park can be. And it's now a little bit like that at Goodison Park, where they're demoralised. The fans need more, and I have to say at this moment in time, I feel for the Everton fans. I feel for Frank as well. Obviously, I played with him with England. I know him pretty well, and it's a really difficult club to manage, a difficult club to be at. My brother was there for many, many years and had to fight through that early 12 to 18 months where they were tough with him. And you expect that. You don't expect an easy ride over there. You expect them to be tough with you. You want them to be tough with you, but they deserve better, Everton fans. They've just got to maintain the composure. I think there is a line. Don't threaten the players. There was issues with the players after the game whereby some of the players I think were, I don't know what it was. I think it was Anthony Gordon and maybe Yerry Mina. I'm not sure. But there was an issue after the game. We've got to stay clear of that because they're better than that. Everton fans, they are better than that. They're good people. They've got good humour. They come and support their club every single week. They always turn up, and that's what I'll say about Everton fans. They're there all the time. And they just need to maintain the composure. They probably don't want to hear that from Mank or from certainly somebody who's on television. But the reality of it is they're too good to taint their own reputation with what would be behaviour that goes above and beyond. Now, I know that Manchester United, there have been actions whereby there have been threats against the owners and threats against members of the executive. It's too far. That's going far too much. Protest, ask for your owners to leave, put banners up in the stadium, make your voices heard, but I think you have to stay clear of what would be physical harm and violence and threats.
Last question. Will Arsenal win the league?
No. But I said Leicester wouldn't win the league. They won't win the league. Manchester City will win the league. And I think Manchester United will finish second. And I know that will annoy Arsenal fans. And it's annoyed them all season. And do you know something? I hope Arsenal win the league. I'd rather have Arsenal win the league than Manchester City. I think it'd be absolutely sensational for the Premier League.
Is that as an analyst or as a fan?
No, as an analyst and a fan. You know, when I think about watching the Premier League, we've seen City sweep up almost, apart from Liverpool, haven't we, in 5 years? To think Arsenal can come through and win it, it adds to our league. It makes our league great. Of course, I'd love Manchester United to come and win it, but that I don't think is going to happen this season. So I'd love Arsenal to win it more than Manchester City. Of course I would. But the reality of it is, I think Manchester City will just, at some point, hit a run. And once they hit a run, they've got to play Arsenal twice. Arsenal have obviously got all the big games to come, because so have City. And look, City, I have to say, we should mention yesterday, ask the question, is Erling Haaland not getting the service, or does he need to do more?
Is he the problem or the solution?
No, I asked that question. I was watching that game yesterday saying, is he not getting the service, or does he need to do more? Then the answer might be both. But I was watching it thinking, I'm going to analyse this over the next couple of weeks and just look at his performances in games. Does he need to do more, or does he need to be patient, hold his position in the centre of the goal like we were admiring him for earlier in the season, and wait for those chances to come and he'll get 30, 40 goals, whatever it's going to be. But that's something I thought yesterday. If Erling Haaland starts to kick on, if City start to purr, that defence starts to shore up a little bit more than it maybe has done. I think you need Diaz back in if they can. I think City will win it. And I think that at some point there will be a very difficult period for Arsenal in this season. Is it conceivable that Arsenal are going to continue as they are? I don't think it is. Is it conceivable that they will draw 2 and lose 1 in a 3-game period? And if they did that, their lead's gone. And all of a sudden the pack's up with them. So that's what I think is going to happen. I think we're going to see a traditional Premier League season whereby a team goes out, front runner, what they call used to in the marathon race. It's like a pacemaker. Pacemaker. And then they'll get drawn back in a little bit. But I still think that this season for Arsenal is going to be far better than I ever imagined it would be. And I'll say this, Arsenal fans, because I know that you'll batter me because you have been doing for the last 4 months. I hope you win it. I hope you win it, because I think for Mikel Arteta, it's so difficult for young managers to break that Conte, Klopp, Ancelotti, Guardiola, Mourinho into that mould of those. It's so difficult now for young managers to grow into be one of those super managers. Ten Hag's trying to do it obviously as well. You can't break them. You lose your job before you break them, then you don't get another one. Mikel Arteta wins the league this season, he breaks into that bunch. And that's something that would be really... And he's doing it anyway, because his football that he's playing is fantastic. But he needs to win that trophy. That's the trophy that, a Champions League, a Premier League, they're the super managers, the ones that win those trophies. So fingers crossed that they do win it if Manchester United can't, which I don't think they can, because I'd rather have that for the Premier League, obviously. And, Manchester City have won too many titles for me.
Well, we'll reconvene next Sunday on the gantry at the Emirates and see what's happened with Arsenal versus Manchester United. We've got Manchester City Spurs before then, so there's be a lot to talk about. It's good to catch up with you again, Gary.
It's a brilliant couple of weeks, Martin. It really is. The game's going to be fantastic in this next couple of weeks, because I feel like it's a pivotal moment in the season.